Okay, if I don't get interrupted by a phone call, we're going to go into this video. It's by a YouTube user I rather like called Essence of Thought. Let's see if I can zoom in there so you can actually read it. There you go. And the video is called Same Lying Theist, Even Worse Arguments. Why being an atheist doesn't make sense. Okay, I'm at 7 minutes and 4 seconds into the video. He's doing a wonderful video which is criticizing a fundamentalist literalist who's coming out with all kinds of stuff. And so, yeah, I thought this would be quite an entertaining video because I'm not pro-fundamentalism, literalism and all that kind of stuff. I'm just not, okay?
And already I take an issue with what you've just stated. You see, the clip you're about to play, yes, whilst it does also air in the Same Lying Theist, it actually comes from another lying theist, the video I did prior. Just because I didn't want to reiterate the arguments again, so I just copied and pasted that segment. If you notice, the red shirt beneath my jumper can be seen in that little part, compared to the rest of the video where it does not appear. You know, I'd expect you to know this if you like me and watch my content, because surely you wouldn't just go to the second video, ignoring the first video and the context given in the first video, and attempt to make an argument about discussion which has taken place over 2 videos when you've only watched a single video. Surely you wouldn't be that foolish, would you now? Greetings and welcome people to YouTube, this is Essence of Thought, and I'm doing a video response to Nick Dutch's video, Essence of Thought and Pascal's Wager. Now, another point I'd like to mention, I do like your usage of the subtitle, Essence of, what's that again? You know, this really snide remark that I've very often got from religious fundamentalists in the past, from such likes as the Cartesian Theist. So this whole person I like thing really is just a crock of shit that's attempting to give you this false air of neutrality around you to try and bolster your arguments. Well, it's kind of easy to see through it from the way you open your title screen with an insult and then go on to contradict that with, oh, I like this user. I bet the rest of the video is practically going to be the same. Let's see and watch through it.
But sometimes there's some points of view which people who are supposed to be of the critical, scientifically minded people kind of come out with, which is basically not necessarily clear-minded. And at this section in the video, he's criticizing Pascal's Wager, which I thought would be quite a good critique, but in the end, I just didn't quite get, good stuff from it. So here we go.
So, let's go on to Pascal's Wager and why the fuck it does not work.
Yes, please.
4 points as to why it does not work.
I don't know whether I'll get around to doing them all, but we'll have a quick look.
1. If God does not exist, and, you spent your entire life worshipping, you do have everything to lose.
Really?
You have many experiences, as well as all that time and effort you put into worshipping, lost out of your one and only life.
Okay, well, that on its surface is a very interesting point. Let me take a quick swig of tea, as is my wont. What the fuck is worship? This is the question. Alright, I've done a video recently in which I've demonstrated that scientists told us that it is statistically proven that you will actually live longer and would be less likely to have very serious diseases if you are part of religious communities and you participate in things such as worship. So whatever this worship thing is, it has some kind of health benefits. Now, I did manage to actually find the study that you mentioned, but did not link in any way to the video that you used as an argument, which was really annoying. However, I found a number of problems with the study. For one, it only looked at the US, and this is an issue because that means the study is susceptible to historical events that happened in America. For example, some of the studies that were used come from the 70s or the 80s, following a post-Cold War era in which the effects of the Red Scare were still felt.
What do I mean by the effects of the Red Scare? Well, during the Red Scare, it was kind of a communist witch hunt, because the communists could be anyone. They could be your neighbour down the street. They could be that guy who owned the shop around the corner. They didn't know. So what they did is they drew up a list of symptoms ranging from homosexuality to being liberal and, of course, being atheist. This led to atheists being ostracised from society. Now, what this means is that you are claiming a self-fulfilling prophecy to show you what you want, because you are claiming that, the lives of atheists are miserable, whilst the reason they are miserable is because of people like yourself, i.e. the religious. The fact that they set out, these people were arrested, they were just shoved out of society. It just wasn't a very pleasant time, and the effects of this were still felt generations on, and only recently, relatively, are we seeing this change from, complete ostracization to the beginning of acceptance, and it isn't that great either. So yes, it fails to take into account historical extraneous variables. If we do a cross-national study, compare America to Sweden, which has a population 75% atheists, we get a very different picture. If we also look at the prison populations of atheists compared to, the actual populations of atheists in open society today, again, we get a very different picture. So there are a number of issues with that study in that factor. Secondly, I reject the study on the basis of how it operationalized things, i.e. what it claimed to be religious practices. Now, there are some being shown on screen, and now I wish to highlight a few. Meditating, yoga, fasting, making a pilgrimage, going on a weekend retreat, listening to the words of an inspired speaker, dancing in a group at a wedding, or contemplating a sunset or a mountaintop. None of these things are religious in nature. Therefore, this study is based on bullcrap, practically. It's got nothing to it. It's got no weight. The thought process at the start of the study has failed. Therefore, the follow-on from that cannot be valid. My father meditates. I go into deep thought. That's all meditation really is. Yoga is a practice. It's an art. It's a sport. Classes many different things. It really just offers a sense of relief, and it offers some physical and psychological benefits. There is nothing spiritual or religious about it. Then we have fasting. Exactly the same as dieting. Of course it has benefits. Then we have, making a pilgrimage. What is a pilgrimage? By pilgrimage, we don't often mean, going to the Holy Land. A pilgrimage has become known as just a personal journey on self-discovery. That's what a pilgrimage has become. It is just self-discovery. So when a person learns that, their sexuality is different, and they learn how to accept that and deal with that in society, that is viewed as a pilgrimage. When a person, for example me, when I discovered the philosophy and the science behind things and ceased to be atheist, that was a pilgrimage. So there's that issue. Then going on a weekend retreat. How can you attempt to link going on a weekend retreat as a spiritual occasion? I do not know. Then there's listening to the words of an inspired speaker. I listened to Carl Sagan's Pale Blue Dot and, Charlie Chaplin's The Greatest Speech Ever Told from The Great Dictator on a regular basis. These are both agnostic atheists, and I listen to them because their words speak truth to me. Not religious in any sense. Then dancing in a group at a wedding. A wedding is a civil ceremony. It's not a spiritual, it's not a religious one. It predates these two things. It is a civil ceremony. You are given civil rights, etc., etc. Some people build religion upon this. But, I like dancing. I've danced at weddings before. I've danced at, birthdays before. Again, not innately religious. And then lastly, contemplating a sunset or a mountaintop. Just what the fuck? You know, science has given me and everyone else greater scope to do this. You know, we no longer have to see the sunset ourselves, go to the mountaintops ourselves. We watch things such as Planet Earth, and we get to see these fantastic things, this wonder. And what's more, we get to understand it through science. And I can actually get amazed at how, you know, a waterfall is formed by backcutting and, you know, hydraulic action. I get excited at how crystallization occurs and the different conditions, how they can lead to different types of crystals, different sizes, etc. forming. This is not a religious experience. All of these things are parts of being human. They can be secular in nature. You know, yeah, okay, singing in a choir, religious experience. Singing in general, not a religious experience. Lighting candles for Hanukkah or, you know, a calendar, okay, religious experience. Lighting candles in general, not a religious experience. The study is flawed from the go, and therefore, because it fails at the theory and the construction, its conclusions cannot be valid. So there was that. And also, thirdly, I fail to see the comparison between those who believe from choice and those who believe because they were threatened by the prospect of hell. If you do not remember, we are dealing with Pascal's wager, i.e. those people who are threatened by hellfire into belief. That is what Pascal's wager is. It doesn't touch or give a crap about those people who are religious because they were raised by their parents to be religious. We're not on about those. So you need to find me a study that compares those who are forced into religion by the threat of physical violence and those who decided to go into religion. Just something you really failed to do.
Secondly, there's the experiences that one gets as a result of being involved in the worshipful state of mind, which one could say is possibly analogous to being in love. It's a great state of mind if you can actually find it.
Yes, just like in the case of women on the receiving end of domestic violence, very often will learn to somehow, in a twisted sense, love their abuser, and they will actually stand up and defend their abuser, you know. Oh, he's not always like that. Oh, you know, sometimes he says the sweetest of things. It's the exact same thing with the followers and their deity, especially on the basis of people who are threatened into believing, as we are discussing when dealing with Pascal's wager.
Thirdly, being involved in a worshipful community provides you with more experiences rather than takes them away. As I've already demonstrated, it's been statistically proven by science that people who are involved in religious communities are more likely to have even more social connections, to be involved in more people, and with more people, okay? And potentially to be doing an awful lot more. So we're talking about activities such as new dating opportunities. We're talking about activities such as barbecues, picnics, meals together, events, theatre visits, and that sort of thing. So these are wonderful experiences which people would be missing out upon, potentially speaking, through, you know, the expanded network of a religious community if you had chosen to not get involved in worship.
As time goes by, this is becoming a less and less valid argument. Reason for this? We are getting more secular means of society, you know, whether it be out there like the ACLU, whether it be the Reason Rally, the Sunday meetings, or even the growing online international community here on YouTube or Facebook. You know, communities are growing. And then, of course, there are those communities, example fandoms, which have nothing to do with religion, that still offer support, etc. They too are growing. Interconnectedness is growing. People coming together is increasing. And it's brilliant. We are going through what is known as structural differentiation, where establishments are losing their functions through other establishments growing. For example, it occurred once when the church once had a monopoly on education, and then with the existence of, public schools or schools in general, structural differentiation occurred and they lost this function. The same is happening with this meaning of community. You no longer have to go to church to belong to a community. Also, this does not deal with such cases as LGBT individuals who are forbidden to love the people they are drawn to, or the cases in which children die as a result of faith healing. This does not deal with those cases.
Is it a question of a waste of time? Is singing a waste of time? Well, what about the experiences of the people who go and do karaoke? They love it. Alright, they love doing karaoke. If you weren't doing karaoke, you'd be doing something else. This is a pathetic argument.
You have reached the third degree of moronity, as you have forgotten what the fuck Pascal's wager deals with. Pascal's wager deals with individuals who are threatened into believing from the threat of physical violence, i.e. the hellfire. That's Pascal's wager, i.e. you should believe, because if you don't, you could end up in hell for all eternity, compared to if you do believe and it turns out there is no God, you lose nothing. That's what Pascal wager deals with. So if you're going to make an attempted video response to somebody, make sure you remember the fucking topic. I couldn't give a shit about the willfully deluded. Go ahead, I do not give a crap about you. But for those who are threatened and coerced by the idea of hell into belief, I will stand for these individuals and I will explain to them why it is a bad argument.
I mean, think about it. All the time you spend singing, alright, or doing something which is therapeutic, or reading, or writing, and not other things which are associated with living a religious life. I mean, come on. All these things are experiences which you could have, which could do you some good and connect you with more people, providing you with identity, culture, a mythological structure to life and to understanding. It provides you with a similarity of, ideas which you can discuss with, what's it, a third of the population of the world, or something crazy like that.
Nick Dutch, could you please remain on topic? When dealing with Pascal's wager, I am discussing those individuals who believe due to, guess what, Pascal's fucking wager, not the willfully ignorant.
So, I mean, this is supposed to be someone who believes in, this guy here, someone who's supposed to accept science and scientific thinking and all that kind of stuff, but can't seem to use any form of reason and rationale when applying it to the subject of Pascal's wager in this one particular video. So I think that's actually crazy. But anyway, let's look at the next section.
Before you start the personal attacks, at least make sure you have an actual argument and you know what the hell you are in fact talking about. At least when I insult someone, I explain their arguments first and then go on to explain why you are a moron. All you are doing is going, okay, well, some people willfully believe, therefore it's okay for those who are forced to believe. It's like, the two do not link. Your arguments fail on your lack of understanding of Pascal's wager, or why the fuck I am talking about Pascal's wager. Really. Also, on top of this all charade really goes to show the utter bullshit of your attempts to be neutral in the start. I don't try doing that. People know I, of course, am going to have some bias as an atheist. Yes, that's why they can check the validity of my claims for themselves. But I don't attempt to deceive them into thinking, oh, I like this person. Well, frankly, I don't like you. You're a fucking arsehole who doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. That is a loss, whether or not you like to admit it.
Or alternatively, it is a greater gain through social connections, actually.
Would Nick Dutch please provide some evidence on how people being forced into a belief on the basis of a threat of physical violence and eternal torture will ever give them something to gain? Have you ever heard of personal freedom? You are no different to a guy holding a gun to somebody's head and going, well, you know, I'm giving you more than I'm taking, but just do the fuck I say. I don't buy into this false slavery is better argument as exactly what you are arguing. Maybe not directly, but inadvertently. 2.
This should be fun.
If you pick the wrong god,
no.
and then you stand before another god, how do you think that god is going to react to you if you took the belief of a different god on faith, as opposed to suspending belief?
So you mean instead of the father of humanity as in Yahweh, it would be the father of humanity as in Odin? Or what if there is a god, that they're both the same thing and these are two different cultural names for the same thing? If you think about it, cultures which have no access to the outer world have got their own word for telegraph poles, for lampstands, so we might as well have different words or different names for the same thing, or the same godlike character. So you're using a religious argument to attack a religious argument without looking at metaphor, without looking at analogy or simile or cultures, or cultural points of view, I should say. So, you know, WTF. Alright, I mean, I don't think it is just me who can see that there is something substantially wrong with this point of view and this attack on Pascal's rage at these wonderful 4 magical points. This is number 2. Oh my god, what if you'd chosen the wrong god? I think this is pathetic, to be honest. Sorry, I got distracted by a call just then, but never mind. But you see where I'm coming from. Someone who's supposed to be so skeptical and so scientific should actually be doing a bit of thinking.
K. Cortez is arguing Pascal's wager from a Christian standpoint. Therefore, Exodus chapter 20, verse 3, "You shall have no other gods before me." There is a great deal of ignorance in this video, but it's not found in my arguments.
Let's carry on with his video.
At least as an atheist, I still hold the ability to go, you did not supply sufficient evidence to make me believe in you.
Right, so what he's saying is me being an atheist, I've got a reason to be an atheist, and therefore you, namely the theist, doesn't have a reason to be a theist because you haven't provided enough evidence. Which I can understand. I mean, again, on the surface that seems like a very reasonable presupposition and point of view. But I think that there are problems here because this is an attack against a literalist, but now he's supposed to be focusing in on the idea of Pascal's wager. If it's a question of quality of evidence when you're dealing with something which is by its nature very poetic, alright, as spiritual ideas are, religious ideas are, then essentially you can't really apply the standards of the empirical sciences to them anyway, because it's to do with personal change, transformation, growth, thousands of analogies involved in religious texts. Okay, so we've got to think about, is this particular skeptical individual being sufficiently rational about his attack upon what a religion is, or what a religion could in fact be about. Now, if you're just attacking literalism, then essentially taking the piss in this way is actually quite a constructive thing to do. Okay, because essentially literalism needs to be challenged. But a good way of challenging literalism is to actually look at the religious point of view from a allegorical point of view, and from seeing it as an analogy for life itself, for growth, for change, for progress, for overcoming obstacles, for overcoming issues of personal growth and development, and to explain that, which some literalists will not be able to get their head around because it's a very complex subject. Okay, and therefore it will be a better way of tackling the problem of literalism through using the ideas from spirituality and faith as a means of looking at personal growth. And if you see God as being a state of mind that you reach after a certain period of time of performing a religious life, or if you see the idea of heaven being the state of joy you get after many years of filling your mind full of ideas such as love and tolerance and acceptance and forgiveness and that sort of stuff, then essentially you're moving on to a new level. And then maybe you could see, even as an atheist, you could probably see that there is a benefit to some forms of spirituality and religion, rather than necessarily this literalist interpretation, but being able to poetically look at the stories which come out of literalism and seeing them from a different light and a different point of view, to say that this is poetic and it could therefore be used to help you to reach that state of mind. But I don't think that there's been many challenges from the skeptical community against religion or religious people along those lines.
Do you want to know why? Because if it is all a metaphor, then hell, along with everything else, goes down the drain, and Pascal's wager loses both its bite and its basis, and is no longer a valid argument. It took me a single sentence to completely abolish the last 3 minutes of you speaking and what you have stated. You have severely underestimated my defensive capabilities. As a person who went on faith, you lose that ability.
Well, I think there's a few questions there, to be honest.
3. If God was apparently all-knowing, as you claim he is, wouldn't be able to see through the fact that I only believed out of fear? Wouldn't he see that my belief was not sincere?
Fear of what? Fear of going to an imaginary place with flames and pit of sulfur sounds daft to me. Okay, or is this because, of the whole idea of, like, God is a vengeful, jealous individual? But the idea of God being jealous and vengeful is also an analogy to what happens if you lose sight of love and tolerance and forgiveness and acceptance and all that kind of stuff. It's an expression of separation from, your tribe, your community, being accepted, and also entering into a mental hell world as a result of having done things that are wrong. And therefore the need, especially for young people and people in primitive communities, to have an instruction and a guide as to what is right and what is wrong, because people often don't instinctively know that, especially if they've had problems which have taken them off the right track. So I think it's a bit more of a complex issue than this guy's making out.
Frankly, at this point, I think you are playing fucking stupid. Do you not know that Pascal's wager is based upon the premise of the existence of a physical hell? That is the entire argument, i.e. that you should believe just in case you might burn for eternity. Learn your fucking theology, actually gather what Pascal's wager says, and, that it is argued by those who believe in a physical hell, and that it's targeted at those people, because right now you're being an utter twat. It's like me being a doctor prescribing someone, insulin for their diabetes, then you coming in with a needle in your eye saying, well, this diabetes jab didn't cure my fucking headache. No shit, Sherlock. That's not what the counter-argument was meant for. It was meant for Pascal's fucking wager. That it was not out of love, but fear.
Well, fear is a separation from love anyway, so if you try and get involved with something which is supposed to connect you to something which is positive, then yeah, trying to move away from fear to a state of love, or to try and move away from negativity towards positivity, I don't really see anything wrong with that. In particular, if it's just because, if you're just going to church or whatever because you're terrified of the alternative, well, maybe if that stops you from doing something bad, that's a good thing, hypothetically.
So here you argue that it's okay to use the threat of violence to gain some sick sense of love. Would you view it as okay to put a gun to a woman's head to force her to sexually please you as you gain some sick and twisted idea of love and gratification? That's practically what you just stated, except in this case, it's a rape of a lifetime. This rape goes on for your entire lifetime. You have no ability to talk about doing the right thing. 4. Hell is no worse than heaven.
Now this one really gets to me.
Heaven is merely an existence of worship.
That's only if you take Revelations literally. Remember, Revelations was written under the influence of magic mushroom and is a poetic expression of what it's supposed to be like when you reach that, state of nirvana or happiness, when you're in that state of joy, after a long period of time of living a life in which you've been doing certain forms of activity, such as contemplating love and forgiveness and tolerance and acceptance and all that kind of jazz, as well as living a life which is as far as close to good as you possibly can. All right, it's a poetic expression of it. It's not a question of you will be in chains, having to say these words, wearing a certain uniform. This whole using literalism to attack literalism is mental. It just really is mental.
So when tackling arguments that rely on a literalistic perspective from people who believe in a literalistic perspective, I should ignore their literalist perspective and tackle a non-literalist perspective instead. You are telling me to commit a strawman logical fallacy, to actually go out and sabotage a debate. Fucking moron. That deity you believe in, at least in the Abrahamic religions.
Apart from, of course, Islam, where you're supposed to have like 72 virgins or something, and me being a man, I think that'd be really rather good fun, to be quite honest.
Yes, we get it. You see it as morally okay to use the threat of force to make someone love you and pleasure you. We get that you're a sick fucking bastard.
But even then, that's just a poetic expression of a state of joy. And, if you've had like wild, wonderful, lovely, loving sex with somebody, you know full well that that's a feeling you would love to have forever. And so therefore it's a poetic expression of a feeling of joy that you get, at the end of, or towards the end of a long life of having lived within the spiritual existence. It's nothing to do with go to heaven and get laid, or go to hell and have your cock cut off. For fuck's sake.
An eternity of worship, to be stripped of who you are.
No, I just hope that the 72 virgins are stripped so I can get busy. Says he, trying to be as non-creepy as possible. Oh, God.
And people like you often wonder why the religious are viewed as misogynistic, disgusting perverts. Yes, both of them will end up the same way.
Well, no. One's talking about happiness, one's talking about sadness. Get real. Lousy argument.
Stripped of who you are, your humanity.
Well, if you're dead, then essentially what humanity are we talking about here?
And everything that makes you, you.
You'll be dead, old chap. Sorry to, tell you, but this is the afterlife, So actually being totally human, it doesn't really come into the equation, and that's if it is real anyway.
Notice, humanity does not refer to your physical body. A man with no arms has no less humanity than I. Humanity refers to your consciousness, your state of mind, your personality. I also stated the exact words, everything that makes you. Not your physical body, but the word everything. You see, I like to be clear in what I say, so it can't be taken as some, metaphorical bullcrap.
Yes, you can make the argument
I'm making a argument.
If only you fucking knew.
that this will be done quicker in hell.
I don't quite know where he gets this from.
But because you claim both of these things to be running to eternity, therefore they are not quantifiable in how bad they are, and therefore neither is worse than the other.
Yeah, I really think the word eternity is used a bit too much. So you do have a point there, but as far as neither, either being as worse as each other, then, get real. If you're not very happy or you've done things that are wrong, you can become emotionally in hell. That's what it means, being in hell. It doesn't mean to say fiery, sulphurous pits with a man with little horns poking you up the backside with a pitchfork, because if that's what you think, you're crazy.
Why the fuck are you responding to my comments on Pascal's wager in response to a Christian? An actual Christian, one who believes in Christ's divinity, one who believes in the Christian God, and one who believes in the Bible. Why? It's just wasting my fucking time. But I have to do this bloody video because it is intellectually honest.
Just in one case, you last longer, but you do by bending down as a bitch to an abusive...
Yeah, you can say the B word. Okay, you're very clever.
See, this is why it would have been better if you'd actually done your research, watched the first video in the argument, understood the setting for the argument, rather than just going on that segment that I copied into the second video and spewing so much bullshit. In the first video, I explained why I started swearing so much. Because all decency had gone with when someone threatened me directly with the threat of physical violence. I'm not going to respect them, nor am I going to respect someone who makes up entire lists of bullshit. You didn't even link me your video when you responded to me. You couldn't even be that honest, Every video response I do, I go and then I post it to their original video. And often I also send it to their inbox. You didn't contact me in any way. It's lucky that I search Atheist and my username every now and then, so I can find out has anything been said about me. Yeah, I had to find your fucking video my fucking self.
deity, whereas as the other...
And I don't know where you get the idea of abusive from, okay? I really don't. I mean, that's... Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear.
Which tells me you haven't watched any of my other videos ever made, because very often I do explain how the Bible and the God of the Bible matches the criminal profile of a domestic abuser in his methodology, both Old and New Testament.
You deny them that right.
I'm just going to leave it here. I've had enough of this guy. And I think you can see that once in a while, so when someone is being critical of a religion or a religious person, they don't have some kind of glowing halo around them just because they're an atheist or they're a skeptic or whatever the fuck it is, okay? It doesn't mean to say there's anything even right about them. It just means to say I'm a person who's doing a lot of staring into a camera and saying something in a passionate way. Just like Alex Jones.
Here's a fact for everyone to take away. You were factually wrong every single point you made except for the 72 virgins part, which is still debated internally in Islam with the hadiths. So yes, they should take that away. And maybe also take away the fact that making video responses isn't as easy as just cutting up videos and saying the opposite thing to the other person. Because I can defend my original video. I go about it in such a way that it's very easy for me to defend possible counter-arguments. And I do put a lot of thought into that, as was shown from the way that I easily rendered one after the other in pieces. It's not that easy. You don't have the hang of it. as is shown by the fact that not a single one of your arguments or the acclaimed study, which quite clearly you didn't read because you didn't understand that, they classed anything that they wanted as a religious practice, even though it had nothing to do with religion or spirituality. So yes, Mr. Dutch, you could not even remember the topic of your video. You have no right to call me ignorant. And yes, I am fucking annoyed. I watched the first segment of your video, then I commented on how, I could barely make it past that. There were so many issues with how you went about things. But I did it anyway. I've sat through it, pulled everything apart. That's the end. You failed demonstrably. So yes, this is a rather irritated and extremely angry essence of thought. Everyone, take care. Out.